Good evening. My name is Patrick Poe. I've recently read the UN Arms Trade Treaty. I'd like to ask how many of you have read this. Unfortunately, our representatives chose to sign this treaty without informing the public of what this entails. I'd like to point out that it is not the U.S. public or the U.S. government that interprets the meaning of this treaty. Many of you may say, I'm wrong, and that's your choice. But in reading this treaty and looking at agendas that the UN holds, think about the meaning of the treaty. Think about the power it grants the UN and the people who sign this treaty. And then think about it. The UN will set up a board that interprets the treaty and the enforcement of this treaty. Once it's enacted, there's nothing you or I or Congress or the Supreme Court can do but request to be withdrawn from the treaty. A process which takes 90 days. That's if the treaty is not ratified before then, before it's enacted, to take out the little way to get out of the treaty. My concerns with the treaty are thus as follows. The wording of the treaty requires us, because we signed the treaty, to change our laws to conform to the interpretation that this board that is going to oversee the treaty decides. Why aren't we being told this? Why has nobody actually told us why the treaty is bad? Our Supreme Court has ruled that no treaties can supersede the Constitution. Well, the wording of this treaty would attempt to supersede the Constitution. It would attempt to supersede our House and our Senate. The wording of the treaty disregards our system, our sovereignty. It has double talk in there, and it's essentially the same treaty as last time, with one exception. They reworded it so it doesn't look the same. It still allows for government officials to request UN assistance and signer assistance, signers as in the other nations that signed the treaty, to enforce this treaty on our soil. So this entails that it's not a guarantee thing, but this entails that there's a possibility they could ask for foreign powers to come into our soil to enforce the treaty. It takes 90 days after the request to get out of the treaty if it's not amended before it is enacted. The treaty can be amended any time before the start of the treaty, before it's ratified into power. Amended without the requirement of new signatures. The treaty requires our government to collect names, firearms, ammunition of all owners, any firearm, look up the definition, in our country. What that means is anybody who legally owns a firearm and doesn't want to be a criminal, by this treaty will have to report what they own and give enough information. This then will be handed over to the UN, and it'll be put into a international firearm registry, public, with names, addresses, information on what you own. Now I'm sure you registration and anti-firearm people are saying, oh great, this is wonderful. This puts your neighbors at risk. Just because somebody owns an item that's inanimate does not make them a monster. But you keep calling them that. Have any of you read this treaty? I doubt it. I doubt it. Our country is signed into a treaty that will affect this nation, that will affect this Constitution, that will essentially supersede the power of our Senate, of our House, and our Supreme Court, and our office of President. It supersedes their power and requires us to conform to what their presiding council decides. Think about it. Read it.